do a part 2 to one of the shurim that I gave a few months ago, which was one of the shurim was we said over stories from the hidden Tsadikim of the last generation, and the part 1 that we spoke of was from the sadik of Ram Fish Zatzal. This week I'd like to speak about a different sadik that was a close friend of Ram Fish. He was part of the same circle of the Lama of Tsadikim, the 36 hidden Tsadikim, and we know that exists in every generation, like the Gemara says. This tzaddik the name was Rebbe Yosef Voltoch. Rebbe Yosef Voltoch. Rebbe Yosef Voltoch was born in Poland. When he was 8 years old, his family moved from Poland and came to Eretz Yisrael, and they moved and settled in the old city in Eretz Yisrael. Rebbe Yosef himself was a great-grandson from one of the tremendous Tsadikim and one of the biggest Rebbes, Admorim, from the times of the Baal Shem Tov, the Maggid. His name was Rav Michal of Mizlatichov. And when he came to Eretz Yisrael, Rebbe Yosef became very close, very quickly, to the biggest Admor, or from the biggest Admorim of Eretz Yisrael at that time, going back many years ago, way before World War II even. He was very close to the Tsadikim Reb Shlomka Mizvil. Here in Eretz Yisrael, Reb Shlomka Mizvil, all over the world, Reb Shlomka Mizvil was a very famous name, a very famous tzaddik who did tremendous wonders. Rebbe Yosef Voltoch was also known as, I once spoke about in the first part, that the Tsadikim, they used to have because they were hidden Tsadikim, they used to hide themselves they used to do odd-end jobs. I said Avram Fish was known as the Banai, which in Hebrew means the builder. He was a contractor. Rebbe Yosef Voltoch used to sweep the streets of Tel Aviv at night. Sweep the streets. Simple. So he used to call him the Metateya, the sweeper of Tel Aviv. Because obviously they knew he was doing it, the people who knew him. Now, again, I'd like to say that if he was hidden, how do we know all these stories? And the stories I'm going to say, the stories always came out after he was nifter, because they gave permission for the stories to be said after they already left this world. There was a big tzaddik in Eretz Yisrael when Rebbe Yosef came to Eretz Yisrael when he was about 8 years old. His name was Reb Armi Koidenov. He was known as the Koidenov Rebbe. He was a tremendous tzaddik. The Koidenov Rebbe said about Rebbe Yosef Voltoch, the tzaddik, that Rebbe Yosef, when he was 13 years old, he was a baki and he learned tremendous asmada, the Sefer Eitz HaChaim. Now let's understand what Sefer Eitz HaChaim is. Sefer Eitz HaChaim is the Sefer that Reb Chaim Vital, who was the biggest student of the Arizal, wrote all the deepest Kabbalistic secrets and all the different spiritual realms that most people, even when they're after 120 in this world, they barely touch the surface. This Admor said Rebbe Yosef Voltoch that he already was a tremendous masfid. It means he already knew a lot of Eitz HaChaim when he was 13 years old. Just to explain a little bit of who this Rebbe Yosef Voltoch was, of course we'll never even touch the surface of such godless. Rebbe Yosef himself wasn't a healthy person his whole life. He had tremendous pain and suffering, physical, but he always was happy. The Tsadikim always said on him, he always was smiling and always was happy. He always accepted with what HaShem sent him with pure happiness, because we know that a tzaddik accepts everything that HaShem sends him with love and happiness. And that was something like Rebbe Yosef. He was always happy and jolly and always running to help people. He never let any of his pain and suffering, never let it disturb any of his avodas Hashem, of serving the HaShem and serving the God of Am Yisrael and the God of this world. Another tzaddik that Rebbe Yosef was very close with was the famous tzaddik called Baba Meir. Baba Meir was Rabbi Meir Abu Chatzira, which was the son of the famous and the infamous Baba Sali. Baba Sali was known as the wonder worker. Baba Sali, all the stories about how changing of nature and everything was the Baba Sali. And the Baba Sali's son was the Baba Meir. And all the stories that they say about the Baba Sali, they say the same stories about the Baba Meir. It's known, just to speak a little bit about Baba Meir and the Baba Sali, it's known that even till today, all the Abu Chatziras have such power, and they have a koach to give blessings, and it's known because they had such kedusha, they always watch their eyes. The Baba Meir, they walked around with veils over their eyes so they shouldn't see anything that they shouldn't. Baba Elazar, who's the son of Baba Meir, the grandson of Baba Sali, said that he didn't see a woman for 40 years. A woman for 40 years he didn't see. I guess obviously besides his wife and his mother. But a woman that it's usher to see, and his daughter, if he had it, I'm not sure. But 40 years, just to show this family. When Rabbi Yosef Voltach used to walk into the Baba Meir's house to come visit his friend, the Baba Meir used to stand up. And we're in the I prefaced who this Baba Meir was. He used to stand up for Rabbi Yosef Voltach. And he used to say to himself, but in people used to hear, he used to say, this Jew disappeared. So people don't understand. Afterwards they realized, what did the Baba Meir mean? This Jew, Ne'elam. Ne'elam means he disappeared. He meant to say that Rabbi Yosef Voltach is so holy and so big and from the biggest in generation, but he hides himself so well because that was Rabbi Yosef Voltach, that he was one of the Tsadikim. And only somebody like Baba Meir, who had eyes of Ari Hakadosh, was able to see the greatness of another Tzadik that used to come to him. And that's why they were very, very close. But one of the interesting things of Rabbi Yosef Voltach was that he used to walk around always with his hands above his waist with two salim, two baskets in his hands. And people used to think it looked like baskets that, you go to the market and you fill up the baskets full of cheese and milk and everything. But the people that knew him used to say afterwards that Rabbi Yosef used to walk around two baskets, and each basket was full of these old manuscripts of Kabbalah and all these amazing, amazing secrets of Torah. But why did he walk around these two baskets? It's known afterwards that there's a famous Gemara. The Gemara says about Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, Rebbe, who's compiled the Mishnayos, the Prince of Israel, Yehuda Anasi, he used to always walk, him and his family used to always walk with their hands above their waists because they never wanted their hands below their gartel, their belt. It's known that below the belt is the Makam of Kedusha, the Makam Abris of the male, and there's an Indian that, Chas v'Shalom, your hands shouldn't even come close there, so they used to be so holy to keep their hands up. And that's Rabbi Yosef Voltach, but he didn't want people to think that he was so holy that he's walking his hands, so it was like people thought he was just walking around with two baskets. But not even in that, but also the baskets were such holy Torah and Kabbalah and all his manuscripts, but people didn't look inside. They thought he was carrying vegetables from the marketplace. I one time heard a story from somebody, Reb Sabag, he's somebody that lives today, Baruch HaShem, he's a big Breslev chassid, and he one time said a story that he heard from Rabbi Yosef Voltach. Rabbi Yosef Voltach, just to show the amazing simplicity of Rabbi Yosef Voltach, that even though he was so holy and so amazing, and like we just showed, his hands never went underneath his belt, and that's why his waist, that's why he used to carry around baskets wherever he went all day. One time he came to Miron. We know that all the hidden Tsadikim, they used to always come to Rashbi, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, because Kabbalah, and they used to come there and daven, and they used to do a lot of miracles from over there. Rav Sabak said one time he heard a story that Rabbi Yosef Voltach Zatzal walked into Miron, into the kever, and he puts down his two baskets, and all of a sudden puts his hand, and out of the basket comes cheese, vegetables, crackers, and he sits down and he says like this is what Rabbi Yosef Voltach said, Ribono Shel Olam, I don't know how to daven properly. I'm not on the level to understand how to daven, so I can't daven. But one thing you did teach me was you told me how to eat correctly. So you know what, Ribono Shel Olam, I'm going to eat. He had such simplicity that he felt that he wasn't in the proper mindset to daven according to his level. He said, Ribono Shel Olam, I don't know how to daven, but at least I know that you made this food, and I'll bless the food, and bless you that you made such wonderful food in the Tzion of Rashbi. So it's just interesting. Usually it was that he had all this Kabbalah, but when he felt that he wasn't on the level, he would come and actually bring food and sit and make a bracha and enjoy the food that Hashem made. And, just like a simple human being that's just enjoying himself. It's known that he had his house, a very, very small house, extremely small. He had maybe 2 bedrooms, I think, where he had people used to come visit him, his people that were close to him. He had 1 bedroom for them. And the other bedroom, he never allowed people in there. And nobody ever knew why. One time somebody opened the door while Yosef was in there without permission, and he said, when he opened the door, he couldn't believe it. He said he saw svarim on svarim on svarim. All he saw was svarim. And Rabbi Yosef Voltach saw that he finally saw his secret, because he tried to hide himself. He didn't have svarim in his house. He came into his room, maybe he had some stories from the Baal Shem Tov on his table, but they never saw svarim, so they thought he's a simple person. People, there were tzadikim that said, go to this Rebbe for a bracha. They came there, They said, okay, we're going to lose, but they didn't see like svarim everywhere. They thought, finally somebody opened the room, and finally Rabbi Yosef said to him, because you already saw, I'll reveal to you, I have over 10,000 svarim in this room. 10,000 svarim in this room. One time, he came to a big tzadik's house. I don't recall which tzadik, but I heard the story. And the tzadik invited Rabbi Yosef to stay over in his house. Rabbi Yosef was sitting and learning. At chatzos, late at night, he was learning. Finally, the tzaddik asked Rabbi Yosef, please come, go to sleep. But when he went to wake her, to come and bring Rabbi Yosef, to bring him in to go to sleep, he saw Rabbi Yosef, his hands on the table, his head all the way down, after probably 5-10 hours of learning. And he was begging Rabbi Yosef to come sleep in his room. Rabbi Yosef said, how could I leave these beautiful svarim? And he couldn't move him, because even his sleeping, he wanted to sleep with his svarim, just his head on svarim, just that he shouldn't be separated from svarim, chas v'shalom. What's interesting is, we said that he used to sweep the streets of Tel Aviv. One time, one of the Tsadikim came to Rabbi Yosef and said, Rabbi Yosef, how do I let you sweep the streets of Tel Aviv when I know who you really are? So Rabbi Yosef said, you're missing the point. I'm not sweeping the streets of Tel Aviv. I'm sweeping the spirituality of Tel Aviv. You know that Tel Aviv is one of the cities of Israel that's not such a lot of not good things that are happening. And it's known that a lot of these Lamv of Tzadikim from the previous generation, they lived in Tel Aviv instead of Yerushalayim. And it's known afterwards because they used to be metaken and try to because there was so much garbage going on there, spiritual garbage, especially in a place of Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land. They used to try to be mechaper and try to live there to counteract all the Yetzer Hara and all the Sitra Achra, from the dark side. So that's what he meant. I'm sweeping the streets, but I'm really sweeping in physicality. It looks like I'm sweeping the streets, but I'm sweeping the streets of the upper worlds. Meaning I'm sweeping out all the garbage. I'm being metaken. I'm fixing all the bad things that go on here during the day. One time, it was known Rabbi Yosef was a very, very calm person, very relaxed. Even though we said previously that he had a lot of suffering. One time, though, he was sweeping the streets at night, and he saw a group of people. Maybe it was very late, 3-4 in the morning, and he saw that they were about to do a very, very bad thing, a sin, something connected to Ratzon of HaShem. Out of nowhere, he started screaming to them, "Fire! Fire!" And they all ran. And then he was screaming fire, that they're making, God forbid, they're burning themselves, their own souls with this spiritual fire, but with this from the bad side of spirituality, from the dark side. He couldn't handle seeing another Jew do an Aveiro. But one time he was sweeping the streets, and these kids wanted to have fun with him. They thought he was one of these nebuchs, these people that they can't get themselves together, sweeping the streets. They threw stones at him, and he turned to each one, and every time they said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." We know that part of growing in Judaism is accepting embarrassment. Like we know, there's a famous Rebbe Nachman of Breslev says in one of his torahs, in Torah Vav, that the biggest way to come close to HaShem and to do tshuva and to repent is when somebody embarrasses you and you keep your mouth shut. And the bigger thing is, we know Rebbe Nachman says, it's even to say thank you to them. Because by saying thank you, you're saying to them that you're actually helping me get higher. So Rebbe Yosef used to turn to these people throwing stones, mamish, tremendous rishis. They were doing terrible things to him, and he would just say and smile and say thank you. At that time, there was known he was very, very close with all the Lamv of Tsadikim. There's a story how he found out who all the Lamv of Tsadikim is. One of the stories is that one of the Lamv of Tsadikim, the head of them, revealed to Rabbi Yosef who all the Lamv of Tsadikim was. There was another way, but I'm not going to get into that. But I'd like to say that one of the biggest Lamv of Tsadikim, if not the head Lamv of Tsadikim, at that time was known as the Sandlar. The Sandlar means a shoemaker. His name was Rabbi Yochanan Rabikov. He was the head of Tzadikim. He was a shoemaker. Like I said, they used to hide themselves by ordinary jobs. And it's known that he used to come to this the shop where he used to make the shoes and fix the shoes, the sandlar, and they used to stay till 3-4 in the morning and mamash learn all the deep Kabbalistic Zohar, Eitzachaim from the Rizal, till mamash 4 or 5 in the morning until they would go to the mikveh together and daven nets. Just to show who his friends were and who his chevra was and what type of person he was. And his kedusha, never had his hands underneath his waist. It's incredible, these things. A story goes that somebody one time came to Chacham Menachem Menashe. Now Chacham Menachem Menashe was also from the big Lamav of Tsadikim. He known all of Eretz Yisrael afterwards from the big Tsadikim. Somebody one time came to him and said, asked him about something, and Chacham Menachem Menashe directed him, go to Rabbi Yosef Woltoch. It was Erev Chodesh that day. It was Erev Chodesh, and Chacham Menashe said, go to Rabbi Yosef Woltoch, who's found by the Kaisel. So he said, how do you know he's found by the Kaisel? So first of all, Chacham Menachem, we didn't have to know why, he knew everything. But either way, Chacham Menachem answered, because I know that every single Erev Chodesh he goes to the Kaisel for the past many years. Now the person said it was astonishing to him, because in that time, the Kaisel wasn't, this was before 1967. This was before the Jews conquered the Kaisel. At that time, the Kaisel Amaravi was in the hands of the Jordanians. The hands of Jordanians, there was no going to the Kaisel. If you asked how many people went to the Kaisel before 1967, nobody. And they asked Chacham Menachem, he said to Chacham Menachem Menashe, he said, how's it possible? How the Jordanians, they're going to stone him, kill him, they don't let anybody. So Chacham Menachem Menashe said, you don't know Rabbi Yosef? When he goes there, he goes with, they don't see him. He's so holy that he's able to make himself invisible. It's known, one of the famous things that the Mamish Lam of Tsadikim, one of the big powers of them is that they can Mamish go between people and they're not noticed because they can make themselves invisible. It's known that just to give a story about how we know this is such a thing, the Vilna Goyim, in the times of Vilna Goyim, there was a famous Ger Tzedek. There was a tremendous Polish nobleman, the son of a nobleman, that he became a tremendous sadik. He converted, became a sadik, and they arrested him, and the Christian wanted to kill him. And the Gra came to him in jail and said to him, know that I could save you, I can make you disappear. I have an amulet, a shem, that I can make you through Kabbalah, through shemis of HaShem, you can disappear. In the end, he disagreed because he said, I want to be Mekadosh Shem Shemayim. I want to be killed on the fact that I left that world and became a Jew. And not just that, he became a tremendous tzaddik. But we know that there's such a thing. So he asked, what do you mean? The Chacham Menashe was like, what do you mean, what's the big deal? Rabbi Yosef makes himself invisible when he goes to the Kaisel, they don't see him. It's interesting that Rabbi Yosef and the Chacham Menachem Menashe, they used to go to the Kaisel together, and people used to say that they used to go with them, and they used to ask, you're not scared? They said, they won't see us. The Mamish made themselves invisible. There's such koich, such powers they had, these tremendous Tsadikim, and it didn't come from this heebie-jeebie, all this garbage that you hear in the world. It came from one thing, their connection with HaShem through learning and through their kiddush of their eyes. They never saw anything that wasn't holy, or here, that were completely holy. One time, Rabbi Yosef went with a few of his people that knew him. Like I said, there were a few people that were close with him, and they went to the Arizal in Tzvas, to the caver. And Rabbi Yosef turns all of a sudden to the people that's around him like this, all astonished, and he says, I see the Arizal. First time he said, I see the Arizal. So they asked him, so the Arizal has a red beard, a reddish beard, and his face is glowing, is burning from Kedusha. What's interesting is when I heard this story, I thought something amazing, because it says, Rebbe Nachman of Breslev, it's known that one of the big Mekubalim from 100 years ago, who was Rav Bar Nachman, who was one of the big students of Rebbe Nachman of Breslev, meaning he was a couple generations after, but he was from the big, his father was the biggest student of Rebbe Nachman of Breslev, from the biggest students of Rebbe Nachman, who was the biggest student of Rebbe Nachman. He said that Rebbe Nachman's soul is the same soul as the Arizal, that's the same soul of Baal Shem Tov, which is the same soul of the Arizal, and the same soul of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, and the same soul of the Moshe Rabbeinu. 5, and then we know the next one that's going to be is Mashiach. That's what Rav Bar Nachman says. What's interesting is, it says, Rav Nosson writes in Chaim Moran, that Rav Nachman's beard was reddish gingy. So I thought it's very, very similar. You see there, what Rabbi Yosef Woltach said about the Arizal, they had a reddish, glowing, orangish, reddish, that type of beard. So too Rav Nachman, it says in Chaim Moran. But just to show that Mamash Gili, the Arizal used to Mamash appear to him. It's known that he was Mamash Dovik, he was attached to Arizal like amazing. Like we said, when he was 13, he already was delving into the Torah of the Arizal. We know that one of the ways that Tzadikim said to become very close to the Tzadik is, the main way is to learning his Torah. And afterwards, many Tzadikim said that the way that they came to see that the Neshama of the Tzadik came to them was because they attached themselves to the learning of the Tzadik and led a lifestyle of the way that Tzadik writes in that Sefer. What's interesting is one time somebody said a story, one of his students brings down, it's brought down in a sefer by Rabbi Yosef Woltach, that one of his students It was very close. Rabbi Yosef came to his house in Bnei Brak, and Rabbi Yosef was sitting there, and out of nowhere, Rabbi Yosef turns to him and says, "B'ezrat Hashem, you're going to make a bris next Sunday." 5 minutes later, the phone rings, and his wife gave birth. His wife gave birth that same day, and the bris was the next week Sunday. Mama's eyes, he saw everything. He turned, you're just out of nowhere. The bris is next week Sunday. 5 minutes later, baby was born right now. That minute they called. He already knew beforehand that the baby's going to be born now. What's interesting is one time, they went to one of the Kivrei Tsadikim, Rabbi Yosef and a few of his followers that knew him, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in those times we know that it wasn't like today, the Kivrei Tzadikim didn't have buildings really, it was more just, stone, or there was just a stone, and you were in the desert or wherever, in the forest, wherever it was. Today, each place, Baruch HaShem, they built it up, Baruch HaShem. Out of nowhere comes a tremendous snake, a huge snake, and it starts coiling, and starts slithering towards them, and towards where the kever is. And the students became scared of the snake, and they went back. Rabbi Yosef said, "Don't worry about it." Rabbi Yosef ran over to the snake and went like this with his hand. "Move! Go back!" The snake that second coiled and went right back into where it came from. Mamish used to nothing, wasn't scared of anything, and Mamish was able to speak to animal. Incredible. One time, he used to go, like I said, very often to Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, the tzina of Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai. One time when he was by the tzina of Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, if people who know, Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai's kever in Miron is all the way up the mountain. To walk all the way up. One time he stopped on the bottom, got out of the car instead of going all the way up. He started davening, and he said, "Let's go back to where he lived, which was in Tel Aviv, like we said." So the student said, "Rebbe, we're already here. Why don't we go up?" He said, "There's no reason." He said, "Rebbe Shimon Yochai is right now found right here where I'm standing." He davened, and he went back to Tel Aviv. One time he was by a bris milah. Rabbi Yosef Waltach, many times he was the sadik. The sadik holds the baby while the moil does the circumcision, does the actual bris. One time he was invited on the same day to 2 brisin. He had to go to 2 babies, and each one they gave him the honor to be the sadik. After the first bris, he turned to his really close followers, these people he revealed himself to. And these are how we have these stories, because these 2-3 people or 5 people that were close. He said to them, the group of people came with him, the small group, he said, "Baruch Hashem, I was again to see Eliyahu Hanavi." Each bris that he went to, he saw Eliyahu Hanavi. He went to the second bris, and he was sadik, and afterwards he went out and he was almost crying. And the students asked, Rebbe Yosef, what happened? He said, "I don't know, I didn't see Eliyahu Hanavi." So to him, it wasn't like because of some sort of, gaiva, I didn't get... He thought that he did something wrong. He went to Tzadik. If something didn't happen, it usually happens. It means that he must have done something. And for a Tzadik, even the smallest thing that he does wrong, it's like he, God forbid, destroyed the world. So he decided that he's going to go to his friend, like we said before, the Baba Meir, and ask Baba Meir what happened. Maybe the Baba Meir could shed light. He comes to Baba Meir. Before he opens his mouth, the Baba Meir to show the Ruach HaKodesh of the Baba Meir, but Meir said to Rabbi Yosef, before Rabbi Yosef opened his mouth to tell him his pain and suffering that he had, they didn't tell Eliyahu, he said, "I accepted from the house of my father, from the Baba Sali, that no person gets to see Eliyahu twice in one day." So we see there, but first of all, we see Rabbi Yosef that he was able to see Eliyahu each bris, unbelievable, and we see the Ruach HaKodesh of Baba Meir. The Baba Meir knew already why he was coming to him. That before Rabbi Yosef opened his mouth, the Baba Meir said to him, "Don't worry, there's nothing to do with you. It's accepted amongst the Tsadikim that Eliyahu comes to each Tzadik one time." There's a similar story of Yosef Waltach, that there was a tremendous Tzadik, a Rebbe. In that time, his name was the Rebbe. His chassidus was Mibohosh, a town, I guess, in Hungary, one of the towns. And the Rebbe was by Rabbi Yosef Waltach by a bris. So Rabbi Yosef also, again, he didn't see Eliyahu that day, but it was the first bris. So he was complaining to Admor Bosch again, because he thought maybe he was afraid. So Admor Bosch said, "You already saw him once, you're complaining that you didn't see him a second time one day." The same thing, to show the godless of Yosef. But to me, the godless of the tzaddik was not just that he didn't see Eliyahu, that it hurt him so much, not because he didn't see Eliyahu. It hurt him so much because he thought that he must have done this, even the smallest thing. And to him, that was because he was so close to the Rebbe Shalom, he didn't want to do anything connected the will of the Rebbe Shalom, anything that's against HaShem. What's interesting is, just to say a story about Baba Meir, we could spend hours talking about Baba Meir, the stories, but just to say a story that Rabbi Yosef Walter said about himself, that one time he came to the Baba Meir, and the Baba Meir wrote a thought of Torah based on a certain Chassam Sofer. Chassam Sofer was a big tzadik born about 250 years ago, and he lived in the area of Hungary, of Romania, out there. Oh no, maybe the Chassam Sofer lived in Pressburg, actually. Pressburg, I'm sorry. But he came from a place where they spoke only Yiddish. Now we know Baba Meir came from the Sephardi world, from the world, the Middle Eastern Jewry, which they spoke only either Arabic or Hebrew when they came to Israel. Rabbi Yosef Voltach was so astonished because he said to Baba Meir, he said, tell me, how do you write Torah in this Chassam Sofer? This Chassam Sofer they wrote Torah on was a letter that Chassam Sofer wrote, and he wrote it in Yiddish. So he asked Baba Meir, you don't know Yiddish? So Baba Meir said it doesn't matter. When it comes to Torah, it doesn't matter what language. Whenever I see Torah, my neshama knows exactly what it means, and I know exactly what Chassam Sofer says. It has nothing to do with the language anymore. When it doesn't have to do with Torah, then when it comes to anything that has to do with Torah, if it's written in, once it has to do with something that has to do with the Rebbe Shalom's Torah, my neshama already automatically knows what it means, and I know, and I'm able to, you can write to me in Yiddish or whatever you want. And it's known also many times that Baba Meir, people wrote to him things, and they didn't have anything, so they wrote in their language, and they got answers back from Baba Meir, and it was known that Baba Meir just read it, and he wrote the answer, and he knew. From the same reason, he was so holy that his neshama, when it had to do with Torah, and his neshama already knew what's going on up there. This Rabbi Yosef Voltach himself said about the Baba Meir. One Yom Kippur, in 1967, I'm sorry, not 1967, the Yom Kippur War, if I remember, was in 1971. Rabbi Yosef Voltach was in the middle of davening, Musif, for the Amid in the shul, where he was davening. Afterwards, he turned to his close friend, his group of people, again, like I said, they used to come with him to daven, and he said, in the middle of davening, I had an astonishing vision. All of a sudden, I saw in front of me. Now we can't explain this because it's like explaining to a blind person what seeing is, but it's blue, but it's red. You can't explain to a blind person what blue or red is. It's just impossible. What sunshine is, or what anything looks like, for that matter. So I can't explain it, but I can just explain it. Just understand how. He said all of a sudden he had a vision. So I don't know what that means. That he saw a movie or he saw. It's not that. It's something spiritual. He said, I saw Rav Mordechai Sharabi. Now, at that time, Rabbi Yosef Voltach, the head of all the Mekubalim was known as the Rav Mordechai Sharabi. Mordechai Sharabi was known as the head and shoulders of all the Mekubalim. He was able to revive the dead. I mean, he was able to do the unbelievable things, the stories, and stuff. There's no end to the stories, like all these Tsadikim. But he said, I saw Rav Mordechai Sharabi standing in the center of Israel, of Eretz Yisrael, in the air, over the whole Israel, and all the land of Israel was passing by him one after the other. Hebron passed him. All the lands were just circling around him. And I realized that there must be a very, 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 very difficult time going on right now. And I realized that Mordechai Sharabi right now is davening with all his might that everything should go okay. Later in that day, they found out that the Yom Kippur War broke out. They didn't know because they didn't have the radio on then. And only after a day later, they realized the Yom Kippur War broke out. And they realized that, obviously they realized Rabbi Yosef Voltach, he wasn't Stam saying, and they checked Mordechai Sharabi's Talmidim, and they said they saw that Mordechai Sharabi was davening like they've never seen him daven before, crying and screaming, but not like just because it's Yom Kippur, like something was amazing something amazing, but not amazing in a good way, something huge was happening. But that just shows that Tsadikim, first of all, two things I learned from the story. Obviously, it shows the Ruach HaKadosh that he saw Mordechai Sharabi standing and Mamish davening on all the land of Eretz Yisrael and saving us. We know the Yom Kippur War was the biggest miracles. And the other thing is that you see the connection between Tzadikim, and they have such a connection, they're able to see through Ruach HaKadosh what the other one is doing. It's known. Because their souls are so completely become one together. Because we know in reality, in Judaism, all our souls are really one soul. So when Tzadikim purify themselves and they become so connected to their own essence, which is their soul, not their body, not to the garbage, and they connect with the other tzaddik and they become one. Just to show but the amazing Ruach HaKodesh that we see such things today. I'm sure you see, but not as great as this or not as often. There's a story like this. Somebody said this story about himself. One of the people that was close to Rebbe Yosef Walter, he was somebody that owned a jewelry store in Yerushalayim. And he had to go to Tel Aviv to a meeting about to buy and to bring back to his store. I guess to buy certain wares and to bring back to his store. He came to Tel Aviv and he said, once I'm in Tel Aviv, let me go visit Rebbe Yosef. He goes into Rebbe Yosef's house after the meeting, and Rebbe Yosef says, can you take me to the Baba Sali? Like we said, Rebbe Yosef was very close to Baba Meir, who was the son. He was also very close to the father, Baba Sali. So he said, of course, why not? Chance to be with Rebbe Yosef and to go visit the Baba Sali. So they come, and they come to the Baba Sali. I'm sorry. So he said, okay. They go into the car. Rabbi Yosef turns to him and he says, you know what, let's first go to Shmuel Navi's Kever, which is in Yerushalayim, right outside Yerushalayim, near Yerushalayim. So he said, Rebbe, but yeah, you have to go to the Baba Sali, he said. He said, you come with me to the Shmuel Navi and then we'll go to the Baba Sali. Come with me to Shmuel Navi and you'll see miracles. He said, if Rabbi Yosef Walter asked me to come with him to Shmuel Navi, and he says there's going to be miracles, I don't have any choice in the matter. I'm running with it. Okay, he drives him to Shmuel Navi. They stay there for a little while, and he davens, and afterwards they go to the Baba Sali. While they're driving towards the Baba Sali, Rabbi Yosef Walter turns to this person, the driver, and he says to him a sentence over and over. The sentence he said to him is a pasuk in Chumash. We know that when the angels came to light, Avraham Avinu sent the angels to save light. The people of Sodom found out that Lot brought in people to his house. We know one of the Sodom was the place of pure, they had no morals. There was a law that you cannot have any achras tzarchim. You cannot bring anybody into your house to give them water, to drink, anybody, even if they're on the brink of death. So they found out that he brought the malachim, but the malachim came as people, so they fought people, so they came and surrounded the house. They wanted to do some damage. What happened was, all of a sudden, when they wanted to open the door, they all became blinded, it says in the pasuk. It says, Basanverim, they became all blinded. Sanverim is a strong light that blinded them, they couldn't find the door, and they dispersed, and they all became, it also doesn't just mean they became blinded, it means they also became like startled, and they all ran. So he started walking, he said, what's going on? Why is Rabbi Yosef saying this pasuk? Rabbi Yosef said the words of that pasuk in Hebrew. That Anashim amdu bibachutz ubisanverim, and then all of a sudden they became blinded. What does this have to do with anything? Fine, they came to the Baba Sali, they sat there and whatever they spoke about. They left, and he said this was nighttime. This was nighttime. Because by the time he came to Tel Aviv, by the time he wanted to go back, they first went to Shmuel Navi, and then they first went to Baba Sali, and it's all by night. So finally, by the time he came back, and then he was with Rebbe Yosef, and drove back to Tel Aviv, and went back to Yerushalayim. By the time he got back to Yerushalayim, it was already probably in the morning time. He gets a call, I guess from the police, or from there were cameras or something that saw something, or somebody saw what happened. Either way, what happened was people came to his store in Yerushalayim that night. It was not just his store; it was his family store, his mother and father. It was a family business, that store, and people wanted to rob the store. How they robbed the store? They broke into, I guess people who knew, they broke into his parents' house where the keys of the store were. They had the keys. They came to the store. And they were about to open the store. All of a sudden, they started shaking. You saw they started looking one at each other like that, like lost their mind. They ran away, and nothing. There was no cops. There was nothing. Just out of nowhere. But not even that. They actually took the keys that they stole and they threw it to the entrance of the store and ran. And he realized the Ruach HaKodesh, Rabbi Yosef Walter, saw all of this, and Rabbi Yosef, by him saying these psukim, they felt some sort of, they got scared. Because we know that when a tzaddik says something, those words and those things, how it works, I don't know. I'm not, Bezat HaShem, hopefully I will know, and we'll all know one day how this works, we'll get to that level. I guess somehow, when a tzaddik says, it's so strong, just those words, that it causes that when somebody wants to do the act, it's mamish like it blocks them completely. A mental, and they went nuts and they ran away. Just to show the power, the kedushin, the power of this tzadik Rebbe Yosef. One time Rebbe Yosef said to a few of his followers that they weren't really so religious. He was very close also to people who weren't religious. He tried to bring them close. One time he brought two people that he wasn't so close with. I guess somebody he was close with brought these two people with that he thought it would be good hashpah, that Rebbe Yosef would be able to help them come close to HaShem. Rebbe Yosef said, let's go to the Tzadik Rebbe Fandri. Now Rebbe Fandri was a tremendous mikubal many years ago, many years, way before Rebbe Yosef Voltoch, maybe 100 or 200 years ago, I'm not sure, I think about 150 years ago he lived in Eretz Yisrael, and he was buried in Eretz Yisrael. And Rebbe Yosef said, let's go daven. I don't know where he's buried exactly, but he's buried in one of his cemeteries, Beis HaKros, which has a lot of other big Tsadikim and many people. As they're coming into the cemetery, into Beis HaKros, they're looking for the matzeva, looking. Finally, Rebbe Yosef was about 50 yards behind them, because they were trying to find it so that he wouldn't have to. Finally, Rebbe Yosef turns to them and points about 100 yards away and screams, says, it's over there. And finally, they look around, a couple, because they were much further away from me, they look around, they see, it says, Rebbe Fandri. And they're like, turn to Rebbe Yosef, how do you know it was over here? You're way too far, you can't see. And he pointed exact caver. So he said, what do you mean? He said, when I looked over there, I saw the soul of Rebbe Fandri over his caver. And I saw a soul, I knew that's his place. He came to Beis HaKvaros, and he knew which caver it was, not because he saw the caver, he was too far, just because, through his ruchni, he was able to see, through his Ruach HaKodesh, he was able to see the soul of Rebbe Yosef Fandri. That's how we knew that this was the caver of Rebbe Yosef Fandri. How this works beats me. This is the level of huge Tsadikim, especially hidden Tsadikim that have they're so humble, they come to such great heights. One of the big Tsadikim who was friends with Rebbe Yosef Voltoch, who was also one of the level of Tsadikim, is known as Rebbe Yosef Dayan, which is also a sefer written on him, Sfarim written on him about his own stories. He was known, he used to live by all Kibbutz Tzadikim, meaning he was always by Kibbutz Tzadikim lighting candles. But people didn't know, he used to sit there and say to him, they thought he was just somebody, holy, but, not holy to the extent of a tzaddik. They thought he was a good yid that, he used to go light a candle for the tzaddik and say to him. And meanwhile, he was changing worlds. As we know afterwards from all the stories that were revealed. One time, Rebbe Yosef Dayan told Rebbe Yosef Voltoch that to meet him in Shechem. Now we know Shechem, first of all, Shechem is a very, very dangerous city. And even to get to Shechem, to take the bus, is a bus that it wasn't a Jewish bus. It was a bus in those days that you had to go with all the Arabs. But Rebbe Yosef Voltoch said, Rebbe Yosef Dayan said to meet me, I'm going. So, Mesiras Nefesh, he had a Emunat Tsadikim, because he was on such a high level, he said, I'm going to go. He goes on the bus, he said there was not one Jew on, he says the story about himself. He said there was not one Jew on the bus. It was all full of haters, people who hated Jews. And he's sitting there, and they're taunting him, and he's sitting there and learning and diving to Rebbe Shem Tov, everything's going to be okay. In the middle of the bus, all of a sudden middle of the ride, I apologize, the bus stops out of nowhere. Nobody knows what. Door opens and two generals of the police, two high officers go onto the bus, and they start asking the driver and people on the bus to show them their IDs. And finally, when they're about to go off the bus, these two high-ranking officers, they turn to the driver, they say, "Driver, you see that Jew over there? You make sure that he gets there in one condition, and everybody respects him, and he gets back in one piece, and everybody respects him." And we asked Voltoch, I don't know who these people are. They don't look Jewish. He didn't know if they were Jewish, not Jewish. He said he didn't know. They definitely didn't know him. He didn't know them. They didn't know him. And once they told the driver made sure that business was taken care of. That he got to Shechem all the way, like he was riding in a bulletproof bus. Everything was good. When he comes down the bus and comes off the bus, comes down the stairs, Rebbe Yosef Dayan was standing there waiting for him. So Rebbe Yosef Dayan turns to Rebbe Yosef Voltoch and he says, "How was the trip?" So he says, Rebbe Yosef Voltoch answered Rebbe Yosef Dayan, "It was good." So Rebbe Yosef Dayan said, "Did you enjoy my messengers that I sent that they should protect you on the way?" So Rebbe Yosef Voltoch realized that these two messengers weren't just stam people that it happened. It was Rebbe Yosef Dayan. He through his Ruchnius, who knows, maybe he probably sent 2 angels that dressed up. We know that Tsadikim mamash have a koyach to tell malachim. It's known. It's known also about the big makobel that passed away not many years ago, Rebbe Yitzchak Kaduri, that he mamash was able to direct malachim through shemus and through things he mamash they had to do exactly what he said, which is why today we don't, people the malam, not we, meaning we in our generation Mukabalim don't do this because they're on the level of they can't, as far as we know, they don't do these things like Mukabalim did. But in those times, people like Yosef Dayan, who was from the big Gedolei Tsadikim, they were able to do such things. What's interesting is there was one time, there's a story that a person said that one time he was in about 60, this is, we're going back 50, 60 years, 40, 50, 60 years ago, those times it wasn't easy to get to Miron like it was today. The bus was much longer, it took many more hours. At one time, somebody said, this person said he went on a trip to Miron, he wanted to go down by Rajvi, and he's on the bus. About 15 minutes from Miron, the bus breaks down, and the bus can't go anymore. And but he said walking-wise it was an hour, and the walk is not even, it's a walk uphill, so it's an extremely difficult walk. So he takes his suitcases, he has no choice, and there was a field right next to where the bus broke down, and he said, I'm going to rest here, and then when I have koach, I have strength, I'll go and I'll walk up to Rajbi. He says, as he's putting down the suitcases down, out of nowhere, out of the field, out of the stalks of the field, or the trees, out of it walks out 2 of the tzadikim, Rabbi Yosef Walter, Rabbi Yosef Dayan, out of nowhere. And they said to him, I don't know his name, so we'll call him Reb Reuven, come with us. So first of all, he said, I don't know how they just out of nowhere came, because how they know the bus was going to break down? What are they doing in this field an hour away from Miron? What were they doing there? They said, come with us, we'll take you to Miron. So he knew, he said, listen, I'm tired, but if these tzadikim, I'll have the merit to walk with these tzadikim. He said, he left the field with the tzadikim. So 10 minutes later, he came to Miron. He looked at his clock. He says, I don't know how it's possible. He says, till today, I can't believe it, but he said, it happened. He said, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 2:10, I was by the kever of Rajbi. He said, we know that Tzadikim do kfitz saderech. He says, I can't explain it, I can't explain like to a blind person. Again, I take the example of a blind person of color. He says, it was like kfitz saderech. We jumped, but it didn't feel that way. It felt like we were walking normally. But 10 minutes later, we were there. He said, I couldn't believe it. So 2 things. First, how they got there in the first place, like some random field. And he said, obviously, he said also, I knew that they knew where I was, but they had to know that I was going to be here with the bus, and also the kfitz saderech. He said it was unbelievable. What's interesting, another story is that one time they were driving. Somebody took Rabbi Yosef Walter on his motorcycle, because he was such a tzadik and such an anav. He didn't feel it was beyond him to go onto a motorcycle. Some tzadikim to go on a motorcycle. He went any way I can go to get to where I have to go. All of a sudden, the gas or the oil, the gas ran out. And the motorcycle, he turned to Rabbi Yosef, he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. Rabbi Yosef said, just go. And he went another 10 minutes, he said, it's over with. He said, just push, just go. He said the motorcycle kept on going like it was going with full gas. Finally, they passed the gas station, Rabbi Yosef turned to him, he said, till here, I helped you, go now and fill up. Meaning, when there's teva, why? Because tzadikim do miracles, but when there is a natural way to do things, we know nature is the way the Rebbe wants the world to work. If there's no other way, so they do miracles. So for about a half hour, he said he drove without gas, completely like there was full gas. He says he was on empty. When a half hour came, the second Rabbi Yosef said it's over with, the motorcycle couldn't go anymore. I brought it to the pump, filled it up, and we went. One time, somebody came to the mikveh, and the place where the mikveh, and he comes to the mikveh, and there was nobody in there but one person. Who's in the mikveh? He sees Rabbi Yosef Walter standing in the mikveh, not on sukkahs, holding a lulav in the mikveh. So first of all, he's holding a lulav in the mikveh, and second of all, it's not sukkahs. He says, Rabbi Yosef, what are you doing here? Like he knew, he has it. He says, let me tell you, he says, right now, I'm killing one of the biggest haters of Jews. He said there's a certain king in one of the Arabic countries that hates Jews, and because of him many Jews have died, and I hate him because of that, because he's a Russia, and I'm killing him right now. 2 hours later, found out that the king died. The king was killed or died or something. first of all, according to Kabbalah, lulav is a weapon, because a spiritual weapon. I'm not going to get into it, but he used this lulav a spiritual way, and he killed him by doing a certain spiritual thing, and he killed this king that literally out of nowhere, the king wasn't sick, nothing. Either he just died, he had a heart attack, something crazy happened. I forgot the exact thing, but 3 hours later, this is the godless, that he threw a lulav in a mikvah, he was able to kill somebody in a different country. Interesting is, one time he was by a bris milah. It was known that he used to love to go to a bris, because he used to see Aliyah Navi. And every time he went, because he was so warm to people, he used to sit and talk to people before the bris started. Not like stupidity, but he was, how you doing? How's your life? He tried to be mechazik people that were like down. And one time, all of a sudden, somebody saw that all of a sudden, when he was in the middle of talking, all of a sudden he said, shh, and he turned and he became all serious. And they asked why. Rebbe, he said, yes, what happened? So Yosef said, Aliyah Navi just walked in. How could I talk? But how could I even open my mouth when Aliyah Navi was over here? Just to show. To end off with the last story, there's many more stories, maybe a different time we'll say more stories. Somebody, I missed one thing I'd like to say. The story that when they came to the cave of Alfandri, and through his Ruach Kodesh, he said, I saw the Neshama. The people who said the story that weren't religious, they said the story over and they said they became religious just because of that, because they said, how could it be? This is the truth. They said, it's impossible. They became religious because of that. But the last story I'd like to say is that somebody said that he was on the way, he was on the way, I don't know where exactly, he went on a bus, one of the buses in Israel here, and what happened was, the bus turned over, the engine exploded and the bus had no control, and what happened was people started jumping out of the bus, like literally while the bus was going, like rolling out or jumping out of the bus. What happened was, this person said, when I jumped out of the bus, luckily when I jumped out, there wasn't any cliff or anything. I jumped and I rolled into a bunch of reeds or something. They said all that happened was I got scratched and all of a sudden the bus, a few seconds later, everybody jumped out. And I don't know if everybody jumped out, but he said many people jumped out. I don't know if everybody, but the point is that then the bus lost control and finally just smashed into some sort of wall and exploded type of thing. The bus just, boom. He drove back to where he was, where he lived. I think where he lived was in Tel Aviv, and he saw Yosef Altach. And he said he had no injuries on him. There was no injuries, because he said he only had scratches on his hand, but you couldn't even see the mom, and she walked out without a scratch on us, he said. Which was unbelievable, because he's saying the bus was going 60 miles per hour, and he jumped out of a bus, and luckily landed in grass, and nothing happened to him. B'ezrat HaShem, I don't think anything happened to anybody. I don't think anybody died, B'ezrat HaShem b'li neder, but I'm sure people had injuries. He had no injury. When he came back to Tel Aviv, he saw Rabbi Yosef. Before he opened his mouth to tell Rabbi Yosef his story, Rabbi Yosef said to him, he said, when I was just by the Arizal's cave in Tzfas earlier, and the Arizal came and revealed himself to me and told me that you, meaning you who went through this accident, that your life is in sakana. And the Arizal told Rabbi Yosef to daven. He said, for the past few hours I've been davening for you that nothing should happen to you, because I knew that something bad is going to happen. He turned to Rabbi Yosef and he said, you see the scratches on my hand? Because of your tefillas, these are the only things that happened to me from this huge 16 miles per hour of the bus, it's like jumping out of a moving train and nothing happens. No broken bones or nothing. Rabbi Yosef said that Arizal, Ari Hakadosh came and revealed, and came to him, his neshama came, and told Rabbi Yosef, you have to daven for this person, because his life is on life or death, we're talking. He said, I davened for you, and I saved your life through my tefillas, Baruch HaShem, because the Arizal, because I had the chassidus, the Arizal came to me. And therefore, you came out without a scratch, besides these few little scratches, paper cuts. We see the godless, we see the kedusha from holding the baskets, we see the vision, we see the loving kindness that he gave his life for Am Yisrael, and we see his connection to other Tsadikim, what Tsadikim were able to see between each other and to do for Am Yisrael. When I read these stories of Tsadikim, my heart just is on a high, in my mind, I just want to be these people. Unfortunately, an hour later, we get caught up in we should try as much as we can and read stories and listen to stories of Tsadikim, like Rebbe Nachman says, that when a person can't learn and doesn't feel that he can be close to Hashem, he says reading stories on Tsadikim is what brings them back. And we know that's why in chassidus, you see, especially in the chassidus Welt, in Chassidut, in Breslev, and Chabad, and all the, and Baal Shem Tov, and all the chassidus that you find, they're always saying stories of Tsadikim, but not just stories of miracles, but also stories about the mysterious nefesh that a tzadik would sit and learn 18 hours a day, and then he would want to go to sleep, but all of a sudden somebody would come to him and need help, and he wouldn't go to sleep and help him for 5 hours, and just because it automatically affects our soul, affects our neshama. This is why it's important sometimes to just listen to the simple stories. But what's even better is these stories aren't so simple. These stories are very, very deep. These Ruach HaKodesh and Neshamot stories. But even to hear the simple stories, how he would carry his baskets just because he didn't want his hands, just to give us a little bit of feeling of where are we holding? How much we should try. Maybe not walk around all day with our hands beyond or be above our waist. We're not holding there, most of us, or any of us. But to say, Hashem, I'm not holding dear, but help me at least 1 time or 2 times a day to lower my eyes, that I shouldn't look at the wrong thing and build yourself up. Or to daven for Am Yisrael when the Am Yisrael's when we know that our friend is in a certain peril, or something has no money and no shalom bayis and is sick or anything. These stories give us that will. The story of Tsadikim automatically wake up this inner will of our soul to do the Ratzon of Hashem, which is what? To watch our eyes, to learn Torah non-stop, to treat our wives and our children and our fellow Jews with the respect that they deserve, and to be humble, and essentially come to true Dveikus connection with Hashem. My bracha is that we should come all to Dveikus Hashem, even a little percent of what these tzaddikim felt and feel, the ones that are today. We know in each generation are, and we should learn from them, and through that grow in our Yiddishkeit and affect the whole world. Like we know, end off, there was a story, there was a big tzaddik that said his dream was to fix the whole world. When he saw he couldn't fix the whole world, he said, I'll fix the whole country. That didn't work, he said, I'll fix my whole town. That didn't work, my neighborhood. Finally he realized, the only thing I could do is fix myself. And when I fix myself, maybe I could start, then maybe I'll fix others. These tzaddikim came and fixed themselves, and then they started fixing others. And we should want to do the same thing, fix ourselves, and then start fixing others. And through that, we can bring the Geula Shlema, the Beheira of the Amen. Amen.